welcome everybody to the last one for the season here, but probably going to be the best one. We have Mr. Corzo. He's a program manager, the Constellation program with Gibbs and Cox. Prior to his time here at Gibbs and Cox, Lewis spent 6 years providing risk management solutions to the government, its industries, and its clients, primarily throughout the United States and Latin America. He spent 8 years at the Computer Science Corporation, where he was the lead technical team who supported naval sea systems. He began his career as a third assistant sailing with the American Maritime Officers Union for 3 years following the graduation from 2000, Kings Point. He has a master's degree in project management from the University of Maryland, lives in Maryland with his wife and 4 kids, and we are very happy to have him on board. Welcome, Mr. Corzo.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Should I get started? Great. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for the outreach, Commander O'Toole, Dr. Ping. We had a call last week and helped me prep for this, so I appreciate that. I am a PM at Gibbs and Cox. I'll talk a little bit about Gibbs and Cox and what we do there. And the presentation's pretty not deeply technical. Happy to address any questions that people have during this or afterwards on more technical items. But in conversations with you all, you guys were encouraging about, hey, why don't you chart out your own path and reflect on how my time at the Merchant Marine Academy really set me up for success and happiness and what I've been doing. And here I am back in the maritime industry doing some really, really cool work. And Dr. Ping, you and I talked about maybe some, having ongoing dialogue. I love talking to, midshipmen and staying connected to the school. So if there's anything or any way that I can be helpful to you, the faculty, or the students as they think about their own path after they graduate, happy to do that. Okay, title of my presentation, Designing a Sustainable Lifeline Career Path with Purpose, Meaning, and Joy. Let's see, next slide. Okay, you should be seeing the agenda. I built the slides walking through my own professional growth and development since graduating from Kings Point. I'll give you a quick introduction, just add a couple points to what Dr. Commander O'Toole referenced, give you an overview of GNC and its role in the broader maritime infrastructure industry, talk about some pain points, give you some thoughts on planning your own path, talk about skills, grad school, your brand and what that is and how you should think about it, leadership, quality of life, and feel free to ask questions along the way, but I reserve some time at the end for questions. About me, there's a picture of me about 22 years ago at Kings Point, Tombfield, me and my family. The guy fourth from the left is my grandfather. He graduated from Kings Point in 1943. Pretty proud moment in my life. 4 kids, graduated KP, went to sea. Shore, Commander O'Toole mentioned some of the other steps, Latin America, small business. About Gibbs, Gibbs Hall is named after William Francis Gibbs. He was a naval architect, and he was foundational in the design of thousands of ships during the Second World War. And he initially started at Harvard College. He left without a degree. First World War. He left without a degree, went on to be an attorney, and really his mark was being a very, very good project manager. The hall at the Merchant Marine Academy is named after him, and I knew that. I didn't know that much about the company when I was at Kings Point, but a lot of history, a lot of legacy with the Gibbs brand. Largest independent naval architecture and marine engineering firm in the United States, over 500 employees worldwide, over 7,000 ships have been built through our designs. been in business for over 90 years, and over 300 clean sheet individual vessel designs. Over the 91 years, World War II, thousands of ships built to our designs. SS United States, largest and fastest passenger vessel, was designed by Gibbs. The Freedom variant of the LCS was our design. There were two variants. Cool looking ship, looks like a Corvette. And more recently, we've been expanding into cybersecurity, into autonomy. We've been on the early developmental programs with DARPA and the Navy on developing autonomy for the Navy, and that's pretty interesting. As I mentioned, I'm on the frigate program being designed and built up in Fincantieri. Design spiral, this will be familiar to a lot of the engineers on the call. When you set out to design a ship, you start with your mission. What capacity, what speed, what do you need it to do? Then you think about function. What systems do you need? What speed? What weight? Form? What's it going to look like? What shape and dimensions will it need to meet your mission and function? Performance. What do you need it to perform to? And what types of machinery and equipment do you need to achieve your mission and function? And economics. That's the money. What's the cost of building it, of operating, maintaining it? Not listed there, but increasingly, what's the impact? There's a cost associated with, let's say, the environmental impact, and more that needs to be factored in. So this is what I learned about when I was at Kings Point, and I kind of use this as a model to help me think about my own career path in and out of the maritime industry. So we graduated from Kings Point, and this is something that's touted. The world is your oyster. You're going to get a wonderful education, and we have a wonderful network, and you can go and do anything that you want to do. There's lots of opportunities within the maritime industry, lots of opportunities within the transportation industry, and then beyond. But how do you kind of think about setting out your own path so that you're strategic and thoughtful about how you start off your career at a Kings Point? I don't know if it's still there, the windsurfing club, but I learned, and I started windsurfing when I was at school. We had a club down there, and I would go down there and I taught myself along with a lot of the other midshipmen. And senior year, I gave a lot of thought to what am I going to do? What do I want to do when I graduate? And how could I use the network, the teachings, the experiences that I gained at Kings Point to go and have a happy, successful career? So I went to sea. The picture on the left is me aboard a steamship, 1950s engine room, pretty old stuff. You really had to get your hands on the pipes, on the equipment. And what I mean by that is, when you did your rounds, you're smelling things, you're feeling the vibrations, you're putting your hands on the equipment and piping, and really getting a sense of how the engine room is performing. You look at the gauges, but after several weeks of doing the same round, you kind of get a sense of, all right, the temperature, the vibration, the flow of things. One of the ships I sailed on was a significantly more modern. The picture in the middle is what the engine room looked like. It was a slow-speed diesel. It was built in late 90s. And I mean, what a stark difference to go from engine room on the left to a ship that had a machinery control room like this. I never lost the, interest and the willingness to still go out into the engine room, because while there's a lot more technology at your fingertips in the engine room in the middle, pretty important that you still understand fundamentally how things work out there in the engine room. And the future engine room, what are they going to look like? And how are you applying the teachings that you're going through now to be ready for what future engine rooms are going to look like? I think the education at school provides that foundation, that curiosity, but there are things that we can be doing to just stay interested and ahead of what tomorrow will look like. When I thought about the maritime industry within the transportation sector, that helped me to kind of map out what I guess the different avenues were available to me after I graduated from Kings Point. So I thought, all right, I'm coming out of Kings Point. I have a maritime commitment. I know how to operate a ship. I'm going to go to sea. What other things could I do within the transportation industry, and how could those experiences, those contacts, create new opportunities, outside of transportation? There's energy, there's defense, closely related, and you can go into. We talked earlier about the telehealth calls that you guys were arranging. How could there be a segue to health and human services or energy education? This is a defense acquisition flowchart. This is the process that the Department of Defense uses to buy weapons systems. And when I came ashore, I spent 8 years working as a contractor to NAVSEA, and I just really got to understand and work in the process of acquiring ships. And I thought, well, if I can understand this pretty complicated process, that's going to open up a lot of doors, a lot of opportunities inside and outside of the maritime industry. And further thinking about the maritime industry, it's the lifeline of brands that we love. This is a chart of companies that we know well and their market cap. Every single one of these companies relies on the maritime industry to conduct their business, to move supplies, to deliver product. And there's an important role for the maritime industry. And when I thought about how could I leverage my experience designing and building ships to go and maybe make infrastructure better, thinking about those brands, it's not just ships. I'll go back. It's not just ships. Ships are part of it, but you have trucks, you have ports, you have, airplanes. The logistical chain is massive, and bridges, dams, drinking water, schools. So I started to think about infrastructure, and the American Society of Civil Engineers has this scorecard that rates infrastructure in the country. And I saw that it was, in pretty bad shape. So I thought, well, if I've been trained in the maritime industry, transportation industry, I'm an engineer, I know how to design, build, and operate infrastructure. There's got to be opportunities, even more opportunities in broader infrastructure and to make this better. And one of the things that I kind of focused on is, pain points. If infrastructure is that critical and it's this bad, there has to be a need for people to go and make it better. I was just at the tail end of leaving the work that I was doing with NFC and the Deepwater Horizon to happen. I actually have a classmate from Kings Point that was on there, Mansfield. I haven't seen him or talked to him since, but I know that he was on it. And, you know, 200 plus million gallons of oil, and just a complete disaster. And it just made me think, or it was a reminder of issues, pain points within the broader, infrastructure sector. So I transitioned to infrastructure. It was actually a Kings Pointer that hired me at Liberty Mutual to go and travel all over Latin America, doing surveys on power plants. And those are pictures of surveys that I did. And he said to me, I said, I don't know anything about insurance. He said, you don't need to know anything about insurance. I just need you to be able to be curious, to be willing to learn, to be humble, and to do what you do. You know your way around an engine room. You know how they're designed, how they're built, and a power plant is just a machinery space that generates power ashore as opposed to on a ship. In this case, these were hydro dams. And when I got there, I realized that there were certain tools that helped me a lot that I still relied on. On the left, I have just screenshots and images of Microsoft Office tools. I really cut my teeth on doing charts and graphs and simple pivots when I was at Kings Point. And I didn't think that I would continue to use it. And today I still use, pivots and tables and charts every day. And when I transitioned to Liberty, totally different industry, but still looking at infrastructure, I still relied on these tools. And, I make the comment steady versus trendy. Excel, Access, Word may not be, cool, or may not seem like they're as interesting as, drones or the guy on the right who's, flying a jetpack. It's easy to get focused on the cool, trendy new widget. Those things are happening, but, behind that, there are people in offices that are doing the work to support that business. And, it's Excel, Access, Word, PowerPoint are the workhorses of how a lot of that work gets done. Emerging technology and trends, I'll focus on collaboration. I remember, having to pick up the phone or use a typewriter or inter-office mail to route things through offices when I started my shoreside career. Since then, 22 years later, I've worked in places that used different tools, new tools. I have a few screenshots on the right. Slack, if you haven't used it, it's a free app on Apple, and it provides different channels, so you can have different strings of conversation. You can use hashtags to call out different terms. You can use the @ to call out, groups or people. Blitz, I have a good friend from grad school. It's a startup he's been building for the last 5 years out on the West Coast, and he provides remote monitoring and assistance to field technicians. So if you're out in the field and you need some help from back office or some other expertise, you're able to, put some goggles on, dial in somebody to walk you through the maintenance or repair that you need to do. The image with the purple is Teams. We rolled out Teams at work about a year ago, and not sure if you guys are using it at school or not, but it's a great way to collaborate. And I have set up right now I have about 5 small projects for studies that we're doing that I'm leading, and I have, small clusters. And it's fun to use, and it's a great way to collaborate. And then on the lower right, you have tools now that are syncing, your computer with your phone, where you can seamlessly see information across different platforms. And the last point here is, I think collaboration is probably the biggest change I've seen, as far as, how things are today versus how they were when I started working. Highlighting some other trends, autonomous ships, they're here. We're going to see more of it, and I don't see it, happening overnight, nor do I see it displacing the role for operators and for people with different skill sets to coordinate the movement of ships. I think it's pretty neat stuff that's happening, but it'll just be another tool, and not. I don't see it as being all ships are autonomous. I've had conversations with several people that are experts in the industry on this topic, and one example is, well, maybe we just use autonomous ships out in the middle of the ocean from Nova Scotia out to some port that's off the main lanes, because if something goes wrong, you're not going to have a lot of traffic. I've had others comment, well, maybe we should just use it on short sea shipping, close to inland, controlled, and if something goes wrong, you can be there to respond. I believe that they're going to have a role, but you're always going to have the need for operators and coordinators. Blurred lines, you may have seen ads or articles, some of these seaplanes. Is it a plane? Is it a ship? What does SOLAS, what does ABS, what does the Coast Guard say about it? Whether or not we're getting pulled into it right away, I could see opportunities for people with our background to help facilitate development and use of hybrid boat plane. COVID impacts, demand for shipping is at record high, and owners are extending the work life of the vessels. What's that mean? They're postponing maintenance. They're running ships harder. There's several articles talking about how losses are starting to occur, and there's going to be more and more losses. Well, you could look at that as, well, that's just what's going to happen, or, hey, is there something that could be done? Is there a way to maybe address the maintenance remotely? Are there incentives that could be provided to owners, because you're taxing the mariners that are on those vessels, but it's a reality. Spaceship, you've seen these, SpaceX and other companies are using them. I mean, that's a boat, that's a ship. You don't traditionally think about it, but these platforms are going out there in the middle of the Pacific, and supporting launches and retrievals of these rockets. There's a group of graduates down in Florida. I think it's Flagship Management, and they've placed me at that job with Liberty, and I know that they've have been bringing maritime expertise into non-traditional industries. This is something I pulled from LinkedIn. Skills most needed in 2020. The soft skills: creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, emotional intelligence. I don't think those are really taught. You have them, and you can be, and you need to develop them through some self-awareness and initiative. The hard skills are taught. So how are the things that you're learning, the things that you're interested, how could they align with some of these skills that are needed by companies. Again, thinking broadly, maritime industry, and what I'm trying to show here is you hear a lot of let's say, climate action, says number 13, or, poverty, number 1. How do you number these or prioritize these? Number 6, clean water and sanitation. Number 5, gender inequality. These are the development, sustainable development goals, big issues that are facing, the world and our society. Maritime has a role and is foundational in things that you can, in ways that you can apply it to these other problems. Humanitarian economic crisis. It's over a year old, but, just talking about the impacts of COVID on the, merchant sailors. I mean, it's a silent problem. Nobody's talking about it. Not on the national stage the way that other things have talked about. Comment on making career transitions. We all have our maritime commitment, and just a reminder that the maritime industry is a business, and there's lots of opportunities in or outside of ship design operation. If you're thinking about, other industries, think of corollary industries, because the maritime industry touches many other industries. Grad school, I know I thought a lot about grad school and how that could be something that helps me to grow and to transition into different roles. And, me and many of my classmates at school, talked about that as something that could help us. Internships, don't think of it as something that's required for your major. I have friends that out of school just, cold called or applied to an internship after they graduated, just to break into an industry, to learn something new. Set your own terms. I mean, we went to sea for what, $20 a day, great learning and exposure. If the slide earlier, talked about blockchain. If you're sitting here saying, well, I'm really excited about, blockchain, well, maybe there's some internship out there that doesn't pay a whole lot, but you'll learn a lot and you can set your terms. Cold call the author. Somebody recommended this to me a while ago, and I've done it, and I've been surprised by the response. Whether it's a magazine, an article, a book, just write an email, write a letter, or make a phone call, and people respond. Not always, but I will tell you that it has happened enough, and don't be shy, do it. Research, and especially with the internet now, there's so much that you can learn and reach for. And retired mentors, some of the this is great advice I got from a King's Pointer, that some of the best mentors are going to be people that are retired, because they're no longer worried about their own career. They're not thinking about, their own development and path. So they have more capacity, more focus to give you, perhaps the advice that you're looking for. Grad school can be great for making a career transition, skills refinement. Maybe it's a job requirement. Maybe just intellectually you want to go and continue to learn, or you want the college experience. These are all things that were drivers for friends of mine that went to school. Hey, we didn't really have the college experience at Kings Point. I want to go full time and I want to enjoy it. Great. Cons, opportunity cost. You're taking yourself out of the workforce, and there's a cost, associated with that. I have friends that went back to grad school while they were shipping. Pretty smart way to do it. You just have to manage that. 100K admissions are your own idea. I have a few friends that insisted on going back to business school, graduated with $150,000 in debt. Why? Because I want to go and do my own business and start my own thing, or go invent, something that's going to scrub engine emissions and solve our, okay, well, why not go get $100,000 loan, start your own business, and give yourself a year, develop a business plan? You're going to learn more in that year potentially than going to get a grad degree if you're not going for it for the appropriate reasons. Technical, management, leadership, different ways to go to grad school to get those credentials. And there's lots of money out there. I went to grad school for free because the company I was working for paid for it. You had a commitment you had to make. So just be creative about how you think about grad school. I want to talk about the small business experience because it was very different. I spent 2 years working at this small business that brought together thought leaders on emerging issues and projects in infrastructure. And I realized that public speaking is a skill and something that is not necessarily taught. I worked at one company that had Toastmasters, where it's a group that brings together people, colleagues, or people in the same area, and you get to stand up and talk in front of a bunch of people. It's a very, very good skill to have. And down in the bottom, Service Academy's Global Summit. About 5 years ago, I got tied in. You can Google it, with graduates from West Point, Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard. And once a year, we were bringing together, the biggest names from the Service Academy, alumni networks to talk about leadership, fellowship, service, and just there's a lot of great graduates from all the different service academies, and just know that there are entrees there, and we have that as part of our network. Organizational roles, when I think about what we're taught and what we're learning at Kings Point, it's true business expertise. It's how to operate, how to build a ship, and then you have these support functions: sales, finance, accounting, audit, human resources, marketing. When I thought to spend some time in insurance, I wanted to understand risk, and that's really audit and human resources. The small business was sales, and some marketing. And I felt like it was going to round me out and give me additional experiences. So my comment there is, you can still grow laterally and this way. It's not always growing up or in additional expertise. There's lateral movement and growth that can give you perspective. When I went to the insurance broker, I thought it was pretty neat. Henry Willis was the oldest insurance broker, and he started selling cargoes of commodities. And on the left, there's a picture it's a banner that was in our office. So every day when I walked in, I saw, a ship, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. Never thought insurance had anything to do with the maritime industry. And it was just neat that our background in the maritime industry was very relevant. Building your personal brand. It's how you see yourself and how others see you. I like this graphic because it's I think a good Venn of what personal brand is and how you should think about it. I like this guy a lot, Gary Vaynerchuk. Skills achieve passion is priceless. Skills are important, but if you can latch on to something that you're passionate about, that drive is going to outlast your either people that you're working with that don't have that passion, and get you through any hardships when you're working through just difficulties that come with the job. Comment on leadership. leaders don't set out to be leaders. They set out to make a difference. And it's not about the role. It's about, the goal. And a thought on quality of life. Right now, it's very important to me, 4 kids, and I feel like I have, pretty good balance all around. There's something that you love. There's things that you're paid to do. There's things that the world needs, and there's things that you're great at. You can see the intersection of passion, mission, profession, vocation, and getting to that center, that purpose, is probably where you strike the right balance. There's a couple books that I found pretty interesting over the last 20 years. Earl Nightingale talks about The Strangest Secret. Look him up if you haven't. It's a video, black and white, and he just talks about how anybody who has purpose and is working towards something is successful, and how you got to define success. It's uplifting, and it's a great video to watch. Engineering Your Startup. I read this probably about 15 years ago when I was in grad school, and one of the chapters said, talking about making money and building wealth. There's 5 ways to generate wealth, and one is you win the lottery, you inherit it, you steal it, you're born into it, and the 5th is you work really hard, and the most rewarding one is working really hard. And Never Eat Alone, Keith Ferrazzi, that's one example, a book I read. I reached out and got a response, and his story is how he was doing all the things that he thought he needed to do, go to all the certain schools and go get certain jobs, but it wasn't fulfilling and it wasn't making him happy. So he decided to go against what everybody said he needed to do, and just went on to have a happy life. Gibbs and Cox, we're hiring. This is not the latest and greatest, but we do have a lot of openings. We've had interns through. We have an intern that starts, I think, this week or next week. We had an intern that joined our team last year. And I just encourage you, if you have any interest in Gibbs and Cox, to check out our website or reach out to me. I think that's it. I know that this was not deeply technical, but more than happy to now or later to answer any more technical questions, program questions. But that's all I had.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Corzo. Very informative. We have a bunch of questions in the chat. I just wanted to do a quick poll. If everybody would just do that real quick for me, I'll put it up there. And then we can open it up to the questions that the students primarily have for you. Mr. Corzo, if you'd like to answer a few of the questions, or
Yep. So just go through the chat.
Yeah, I think that'd be the best, because that's what they were pretty much wanting to ask while you were speaking.
Yep. Okay. Stand by for lots of questions. Okay, sir, for those of us who want to work in ship design, what actions do you recommend to start taking now in order to best pursue the future? I'd say reach out to us and start to reach out to any other designers that are out there. Think about an internship and just start a dialogue. More than happy to. Should I respond or just answer them audibly?
Audibly, if that's okay, Dr. Ping.
Yep.
All right with?
Yep. So that's from Buddy. Reach out to me, and I'll be helpful not just within Gibbs, but within the broader design industry. If we can get you in with us, fantastic. If not, I'll be helpful to the industry in general. Do you feel future engineers have become less in tune with what is actually occurring in the engineering space and rely more on remote sensors than actual physical rounds? I do. And I think that I'll give you an example. I was on that one ship that was newer. There was a cadet that was there that was tracing the system for his C project from the screen. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing my C project." And I said, "No, you're not." I said, "You can check your work in the screen if you want, but go out in the engine room, pull the plates and trace it hand over hand, just like I did. And just like you might need to, if the ship goes dark and you got to go fix something. So I think that does happen, and up to the individual. The horse blanket, I don't know what that is the company more focused on security and autonomy due to the increasing tensions between Russia and China, or was that always a concern? Are environmental concerns taking more of a backseat in the past few months? Security heightened, yes, because of tensions. And that's just security in the way that we conduct our business and the way that we work. Absolutely. Autonomy, I would not say that because of tensions with Russia or China. In any case, I mean, that's moving at a pretty good clip, but things like, hey, Arctic capabilities and our ability to, go through the Arctic has maybe gotten a little bit more attention. As far as environmental, I don't think it's taking a back seat. It's regulations are there. You need to comply, but maybe it's not as, you're not seeing it as much of a headliner. So how are design ideas evaluated to see if it's worth doing research? How do the designing engineers make the choice between ideas? There's this process called analysis of alternatives, where you, together with other engineers and colleagues, you come up with, what could be possible to meet the need, the mission, the purpose that you want the ship. And then you evaluate those against criteria, and it's iterative, it's collaborative, and with a lot of input from the client, right? We're not designing ships in a vacuum. We're designing ships for clients, for the Navy, for the Coast Guard, for the UK Ministry of Defense, for C1. On the Gibbs Cox website, I see that the company was recently awarded the contract by the US Navy for the next surface combatant ship. Yep, I worked on that. What ideas does the company have for the future of military vessels, and when does cost outweigh performance in shipbuilding, when the vessel in particular needs to be able to perform as well as possible and defend our nation? I think you're getting to the politics behind the funding for these programs. There's only so much money to go around. Money comes into the government, and then it goes out through outlays. And when you add capability to these ships, that increases the cost significantly. So the tough things that legislators need to weigh is, what jobs are going to be created for my constituents, but we only have so many dollars, and that capability would be great, but let's prioritize. The DDG 1000 Zumwalt is a good example. Scope creep led to $1 billion ship that does a lot of really cool stuff, and the program was not continued. So it's more of an art, would be my final answer. Do you think Kings Point is still fulfilling its purpose, accomplishing all the good that it did for you, even with the problems currently plaguing us, like the second tier standard? That's terrible. And I think that it's still fulfilling its purpose. I think this is a tough patch, and I wish that you guys weren't going through it. I wish that you weren't dealing with it. But as putting my hat on as a midshipman, it's out of my control. If I'm a midshipman, your job is to learn as much as you can to get out of the Kings Point to graduate, and then to go and apply that to maritime industry and to whatever it is that you want to do, so you have a happy life. So that's the best thing that you can do. I'm fortunate, and I'm sorry, and I hope that things get fixed there quickly. What are the biggest complications in designing a military vessel versus commercial vessel? Who's more likely to make changes later in the design, and how do you make or deny those changes? I mean, military, you just have a lot more stringent requirements, and commercial, different set of standards. You know, a military vessel, you need to think about redundancy, and you need to think about, you know, the mission. The ship is going to be in harm's way. So it needs to have a lot of redundancy and be battle ready. Commercial ship, not so much. I don't want to go as far as saying that they're designed and built, you know, to be disposable, but it's a very different purpose. Who's more likely to make changes in the design process? It depends on the project. It depends on the program. I would say that the Navy tends to build ships in blocks. You know, FFG 62, you know, dozens of ships. LCS is dozens. You have a baseline design, and then you just, you know, go and produce many of them with minor tweaks. So maybe the Navy, because you're going to do that. Commercial, you might build 2, 3, or 4. You're not likely to go and build dozens and dozens of them. In your opinion, is it steady or trendy? Is it steady or trendy technological improvements that drive innovation in the maritime industry? Well, drive innovation. The trendy, I mean, you're using tools to develop the technology, right? But I'm picturing the engineer sitting around a table brainstorming ideas, and you know, the tools that they're using to do the work that they're doing are, you know, the software tools. So steady or trendy? A little bit of both. Sir, with the maritime industry being known as, I lost that one. On LinkedIn, it says your company Gibbs & Cox is looking to work on sustainment and life cycle extension. How can the maritime industry extend work-life maritime components? So I guess this is an opening. I mean, there's different ways. It could be larger workforce. It could be different materials that don't require as much maintenance. It could be, you know, condition-based monitoring. Imagine if you had, kind of like in your car, you know, you have sensors that'll tell you when, you know, the tire pressure is low, or you got to go change the oil. Those types of systems on a ship can help with maintenance and extended life. Sir, with the increase in software's role in both design and operating engineering, as well as on the discussion of autonomous, would it be beneficial and more marketable for modern engineers to learn more about the use of certain software and computer programming language? Absolutely, but not at the expense of, you know, learning the fundamentals. Because even an autonomous ship, the autonomy technology is going to, you know, do the work that operators would on the ship, but you still are going to have the diesel engine, the generator, the pump, you know, the water filtration systems, the exhaust. You're still going to have all of that. I don't see a ship in our lifetime just being a bunch of, you know, ones and zeros. So yes, but not at the expense of, you know, get the fundamentals that we're taught. What advice do you have from going from ship to shore? Is there any additional education you would recommend for someone going to work in a shipyard after sailing? What was the transition like going from an engineer to corporate job? Dan, reach out to me. I feel like there's a lot more to say on this. Happy to talk more, but you have the maritime, whether you're a decky or an engineer, you spend some time at sea. Shore is very different. I mean, yeah, it's just different. You're working out on the deck plates and in the engine room, and at a shipyard, that's probably the smoothest transition, you know, going to an office where it's a 9 to 5, and some people have never set foot in a ship, you know, take some adjustment, but happy to chat more if you want to reach out. What do you think the next step in innovation in the maritime industry is? in the future, do you think the introduction of autonomous vessels will dramatically affect the maritime industry as far as employment opportunities? Do you expect the number of necessary crew members on vessels to decrease significantly with the introduction of autonomy? Eventually, but I don't see that happening overnight or to the degree that um, it's totally going to do away with it. I mean, even drones now, from what I understand, is the aerial drones. You still need an operator. You need somebody to monitor. You need somebody, at central command that's watching the flow and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So maybe there's going to be new types of jobs, but I don't see it happening overnight. With increasing research in autonomous vessels, would you say it would be in the best interest of King's Foreigners to start adjusting courses to meet future vessels? In addition, what courses would you say would be best in the field if we choose to pursue higher education? I mean, yes, I think it would be great to have coursework at school that touches on, autonomous vessels software, and what you'd want to do. If it's a math type, if it's a math type or math-based higher education, then I would say, your math courses. If it's an MBA, maybe it's leadership and Excel-based courses, because there can be a lot of math in your MBA. It depends, Jimmy, on what you want to go get a grad degree on. Happy to follow up if you reach out after. The limited amount of fuel reserves left in the world and the world trend and goals towards lowering the carbon emissions into the atmosphere, do you think this will affect the future of the maritime industry? Yes. Do you think that electrical natural gas will be a viable solution in the future? Yeah, question mark on viable. I mean, we're experimenting with that. There's always going to be a role for fossil-based, but, to what degree and what purpose? Do you think ports in certain countries may start to further limit shifts based on emissions? Absolutely. Yeah, that would be a disincentive. Same thing with insurance. What if insurance companies said, hey, I'm not going to provide insurance to you if you're burning heavy fuel, heavy bunker? Sir, according to Gibbs & Cox, supplies foreign navies with combat ships. What countries are these, and do you expect more international customers looking for combat ships in the future? Yes, we were purchased by Leidos about a year ago, and they have a pretty big global footprint. There's a program within the Navy. It's the Foreign Military Sales, FMS. There's also NIPO, Navy International Program Office, and they are the interface to foreign navies. And we absolutely, sell and trade with our allied partners. I mean, Saudi Arabia is an example out of Fincantieri. There was a variant of the LCS, I believe, that was modified, and I think the Saudis, bought 3 or 4 of them from the U.S. It's not going to be exactly the same one, but it's a variant. How are we doing on time? I see a few more. Increasing exposure in maritime industry due to the recent supply chain issues has led to more public discussion about pollution in the maritime industry and potential fuel alternatives. In your opinion, what does the future of marine fuels look like? Do you believe that the impetus for change in the types of fuel used would come from within the industry or external forces? Probably external forces. Future of marine fuels. I think you guys had somebody from ABB at the last one. He'd probably be a good one for that question. There's just so many interests in fuels. It's hard. It's a complicated question, but I do see us moving towards more electric, more natural gas, stuff with better emission profile. When autonomous ships start to make more and more of an impact in the industry, How do you think insurance and brokering will react to it? Will those investors be more willing to take on full automation, or would the risk be too great? Insurance companies are a major investor, pension funds, insurance companies. So from looking at them as investors, I think they will. As far as them providing insurance, I think there's appetite, there's interest. When I was at Willis, I had a couple of prospective clients that were doing some autonomy work, and there's definitely interest because it's an emerging market. It's something that's nascent, it's new, it's going to grow with lots of opportunities. And usually when something is new products are made available, and there's a lot of learning, and it can also be lucrative from the insurance perspective. In your experience, is there a specific major topic you would recommend as a good addition to our Kings Point degree to help stand out in the modern job market, or better excel at a career in the maritime industry as well? How do you personally further your professional development on a day-to-day basis? I would think about what you want to do within the maritime industry, and reading books about management, leadership. I didn't put it in the slides, but I love the term being a bird dog. Getting things done is a great skill, no matter where you work or what you're doing. Reach out to me, and happy to chat more about that. But I'd want to know more about what interests you. What organizational roles do you believe are underutilized? I think most of the support roles are not always given the seat at the table, because they're seen as support roles. So chief information officers, cybersecurity, human resources, they're dealing with some pretty important things, and I think they're starting to have a seat at the table, senior levels within organizations. Let's say that you have a sustainability lead at your company. Well, but that person's buried under audit. It doesn't matter that much. They're not going to have much of an impact. So it depends on the organization, but I would say traditionally, if the support roles don't have visibility to the front office, that C-suite, then they're going to be underutilized. Evolution of technology leading to more remote controls of engineers. Do you think future engineers will lack in maintenance aspect and turn entirely to operators? How do you believe this can be prevented? Yeah, I do. There's been articles written on LCS, the Navy ship, and how that sort of happened a bit. There was so much automation, and they relied heavily on the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, the Lockheed Martins. How can it be prevented? I think that's up to the individual. You have a great training ground at Kings Point. You go to sea, and you get to work on real stuff. You can put your hands on a pump. You can haul a piston out of an engine. So up to the individual. Don't allow it to happen. Can you send us a PowerPoint? Yeah, I think that'll be posted. Maritime industry being known to move slowly through technological advancement. Yep. How should newly Kings Pointers go about changing the industry at a faster rate? How is Gibbs & Cox going about technical industry? I would say, track the curriculum is what it is, but things are changing, and just keep an eye on evolving technology and lean forward. Be proactive. One of the authors that I reached out to wrote the book I shared in the slides, autonomy, maritime autonomy in ships. So self-learning, and reach out and engage with people. I showed you that picture of the plane. What is it? A plane? Is it a boat? Reach out to them, send them a note, said, hey, I'm interested, how are you guys thinking about regulation or how does Solus apply to you guys? Be proactive, lean forward. Um, Given ships are becoming more automated and technologically autonomous, what would you recommend mariners do to remain marketable and successful in the industry? For example, would it be better to pursue a career in vessel design and focus on the skills rather than focus on career where someone is physically working on board a vessel? I went to sea because I wanted to get my hands dirty and I wanted to see it. I think that experience is extremely unique, and there's just an incredible amount of learning that happens. Granted, you went to sea as a cadet, so I would say a little bit of sea time, but not absolutely critical. Vessel design is a perfect place. Reach out to me if you're interested. Do you believe in the possibility of extension of shipping industry into space? Yeah. In space, interplanetary shipping, or maybe a permanent infrastructure for supply satellites. If this occurred, do you believe our future maritime experience would be applicable? I have a friend who said the law of the sea is the same as the law up in the space. So I think we'd have a head start on that. For those who plan on sailing after graduation, do you think the FE should remain on our radar as significant, useful goals? Absolutely. If so, are those certifications something we should prioritize and work towards in the short term? Put it off. Don't put it off. I took the FE 5 years after school. I passed it. I took the PE, and because I had moved into project management, I felt rusty, and it took extra effort to go and learn that. So I did not pass the PE. I wish I had. So absolutely prioritize it and knock it out, because the stuff's fresh and you know it, and you're more likely to pass the test now. Told John Tuttle that you were presenting. Oh, send him my best. Good to see you, Mike. I would love to catch up with you. What do you recommend do for first-time internship if you're interested in ship design? Yeah, reach out to me, Gabriella. I'll be helpful within Gibbs and outside of Gibbs. How did you acquire soft skills part of your education? Was that classroom, mentor, clubs, activities? Part of education. I don't know that I acquired it. How did you acquire the soft skills part of your education at KP? I feel like the soft skills came from going to sea. I got very, very hard technical skills out of Kings Point, but being able to go to sea and deal with all walks of life, and sometimes people that weren't nice, or people with different backgrounds, different perspectives. That's probably the best way that I started to work on my soft skills. Sir, with the transition from ships to power plants being relatively similar, what are some industries that you can see your skill sets carrying over to? All infrastructure. If you think of infrastructure as a large, complex system that moves, people and things, it touches all industries, all sectors, and I feel like, at a project program management level, most industries would be fitting. Maybe health, maybe not as much, but it depends on what. From your experience, industry, hands-on experience, do you feel that you learned enough to help pursue being an entrepreneur, start your own business, especially if it's not necessarily? Yes. I made a note in one of the slides. I said, hey, maritime is a business. I had applied to business school. I got on the wait list, and I ended up not going. I got on the wait list at Columbia, and that was in 2007. And then the financial crisis hit in 2008. And I said, well, I'm not going to quit my job and then, go into debt, $150,000, just because I thought I wanted to really go start my own business, and business school would help me do that. So you learn the skills and know that the maritime industry is a business on its own. Happy to talk to you more, Joe. A few more questions. Was your experience at Kings Point during CA the reason you pursued a career in chip design, or did you attend an internship that encouraged you down that path? It wasn't C year. It was just talking to alumni. Said, hey, if you went to C and you know how to operate ships, do you want to come and do ship design? I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. The Integrated Defense Acquisition Technology, DAU, horse blanket. Okay. Thank you. I think you can tell from the questioning how about important questions. Well done. Okay. I think those are all the questions. Wow. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Corzo. That was a lot of questions, and you answered them for us, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything before we wrap up here? Anything?
I just wanted to add it to Ryan's thanks to you, Mr. Corzo, for coming back 22 years after your graduation and generous sharing what you shared with us today, whether it's your rich professional experiences, your perspectives, your thoughtful reflections, and especially your answering these questions from our students. I'm sure all of this will help our students build their careers and help lead them to their happy lives. Thank you so much. We look forward to the future opportunities working with you, improving the teaching and the learning at the Kings Point and the way we do things in the maritime industry. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you,
Corzo.
guys. This is great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
We prepared a certificate to present to you.
Oh, yes. You have it, Dr. Ping? Yeah, there
Yep,
we go.
I can see it. Great.
So, Luis, I want to tell you my appreciation for patiently wading through all the questions. I was the last 5 minutes of it. The soup was with me right here at Yoakum, looking at him. He very much was happy with the presentation, purely from the fact that you got so much participation from the students. I actually had to step down and come down to a colleague's retirement. You may even know Captain Policino. He's retiring today.
Wonderful.
And I had to run down to his retirement ceremony right now. So, yeah, it was a great presentation. I really liked the Q&A portion the best. So I appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you. Enjoy the retirement. Best to Captain Palacino. I recognize that site. Wonderful.
Yeah, there he is over there. Okay, he's trying to keep his kids from jumping off the side.
Super.
Or his grandkids, probably.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you guys
Come
so
back
much.
up and see us, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
All right, Luis.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Luis.